It's track laying time here on the railroad, and we're going to kind of take you through and show you a lot of the activity that we did on the hill on the final stretch of our track that goes through the woods at the highest elevation on the railroad. And we're going to be working track all the way around this last big horseshoe all the way to the open field on the south side of the property. So we're just going to kind of go back and forth and show you some different track laying things that we did, and explain some of the techniques that we use, and hopefully you'll understand it a little better.
I need about 3 inches my way. Did you bring all the joint bars down here?
Yeah. Well, we've got our gauge rail here, and we are putting in a joint. And we'll get more into this a little bit later as we move down the track.
All right. What's the point? You can't turn them any tighter.
Here we have Milo learning how to mark ties. There are 2 marks that are put on each tie. The first marks the center. The second mark is placed where the first spike will go. That first spike will always be placed on the inside of every curve, so we can pull that first rail around the curve. You can see our newly renovated yellow work car, which we use to haul our tools and all of our spikes and other small materials to the railhead to make it easier to get things close to where we need them. We also have a flat car that's on the same train that carries our rail. So here we have our rail spread out. We're working on these curves here. There's 3 or 4 curves in a row that kind of meander through the woods. And we're working on those and getting the ties laid out in preparation for track laying. What we try to do is lay out enough ties for a full day's work, and a lot of times we'll do this ahead of the day that we're going to actually lay the track, so it's all set to go when the crew shows up. So we'll probably lay anywhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 feet of track per day. I think we came real close to 400 feet one day when we had like a 12-man crew. And the ties come to us in bundles of 20. We buy them in any length from 5 feet to 7 feet long. The price is usually a little better when we do that, so they're not all exactly the same length, but they all still work for what we're doing just fine. Well, on the tie placement, we place these ties 2 feet apart, and obviously they move around a lot and get shuffled around a lot once they're down, once the rail gets thrown on them, but they will be readjusted to their proper spacing as we go through and lay the rail. We'll usually take and put down our guide rail first. Once that guide rail's down and the ties for that guide rail are spaced out, then we kind of fine tune the tie on the other end so that when we get our gauge rail in, everything is back to being straight again. So we're on our upper horseshoe here. We've got our guide rail, our first rail, laid out all the way around the curve. It's a lot easier, we found, to do the guide rail as far as we could possibly do it. And if we can make it all the way around a curve before we put the second rail in, it turns out to be a lot easier to lay track. One of the lessons that we've learned over the past few years. We used to put 1 or 2 guide rails in, and then we go put the other side in. But then you kind of get locked in and things get a little weird. Even on straight track, it gets a little crooked, and then you have to fix it all. So we put our guide rail in all the way along on the inside of the curve, and then we come back to the beginning of the curve, usually, and put in the gauge rail, which is what we're doing here. And we're spiked